Howdy, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be ranking and reviewing the E03 Packer by Exoogen.
Just like always, I'll be ranking this prosthetic based off of 5 different criteria. The first one's going to be looks and realism. Will it look natural if I wear this when I'm naked? Next one is going to be comfort and packability. Will it feel or look like I have a boner when wearing this? Next one is going to be squishiness. How soft is this packer? And will it pass the grab test? Next is going to be pricing. Will I be broke if I buy this prosthetic? Yes or no? And then my overall ranking and would I recommend it to people? Before we get started, I'd like to point out that while I did buy this prosthetic with my own money, I did get it at a discounted rate for this review, but I'll still give my own honest opinion on this prosthetic, and if something works for me, it may not necessarily work for you, so please keep that in mind. I'd also like to point out that I have an affiliate code with Exoogen for 10% off your order. The discount code is STPsRUS. Just use it at checkout and save a little bit of money. Before we get started, I'd like to give you fair warning that what you're about to see is a prosthetic that looks like a penis. If this bothers you in any way, please feel free to click off the video. Thank you for watching as long as you did, and have a good one. Alright?
Here is the E03
by Exoogen. The size specs for this are length of shaft are going to be 4.72 inches or 12 centimeters. The circumference is going to be 4.33 inches or 11 centimeters. The height from the tab to the start of the actual shaft is going to be 2.95 inches or 7.5 centimeters. The width of the prosthetic is going to be, at its widest point, is going to be 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. And the weight of this is 7.3 ounces or about 207 grams. So it is a bit hefty for a packer. The pricing for this is going to be 369 euros or around $377 USD. There's 15 color options. Mine is in color 2. For pricing tier, this is going into I will never financially recover. For over $300, this is one of the most expensive packers I've seen so far. They do have some cheaper options like the XL1, which doesn't have floating testicles, and their XL Limp, which is a less realistic, more standard packer. From how I received the package, from ordering to receiving it, it took about 2 months, and I want you to keep in mind that this is a small company based in France, so it's not going to be super fast. How I actually received the package was inside an unmarked brown box was the sealed prosthetic, and it came with a cloth storage bag. And something that was really neat was it came with a reinforcement kit of A and B parts that you could put on your prosthetic to help reinforce it if there's any rips or whatnot. I'm a really big fan of the fact that they used a box for shipment and they actually came with a storage bag, especially for the price you're paying for it. It's just a nice little add-on to have. I'm also really happy that they included this reinforcement kit. I know with just prosthetics in general, there's sometimes an issue about them degrading over time. The most common thing people use is Silpoxy because it's skin safe, but I know in certain countries it's harder to get your hands on that. So the first thing I noticed about this prosthetic is, if you can tell from the side, it kind of sticks out a little more than I would have expected, but it is still really squishy, so it's able to compress fairly well. I think it's because of the molding of this that it sticks out like this, but again, it is pretty squishy, like overall. I believe they use multiple silicones in this one because the outside feels firmer than the inside, and the balls have 3D balls inside of them, and they feel like they're in a type of gel inside of the actual scrotum. The next thing I noticed on this is the tab on this has skin texturing, and it's really thin and stretchy. There's a little bit of unevenness on it, where some parts are a little thicker than others, and I think that's just how they lay down the silicone, and maybe it's not level all the way. But I was a bit concerned that this tab was going to rip, but so far it's held up pretty well. It's pretty sturdy. If you can kind of tell, there's not really any painting on the tab itself. It's all on the actual shaft and scrotum. And while the painting on the shaft and scrotum look really good, I wish there was a more gradual gradient that goes more onto the tab, even if it just stopped like halfway. I think that would look a little bit better because the difference between them is kind of stark, in particular around the balls area when it goes to tab. It just kind of cuts off immediately. I will say the paint job on this looks pretty good. Like there's little bluish veins on here which look really good. The inside of the head is painted, but when I pull back the foreskin, I can kind of see that the paint didn't make it all the way in there. It's kind of hard to see on camera. And something I noticed is the paint on this kind of pools in the wrinkles of the balls and makes it very dark red. I kind of wish there was a way to get around that, just because to me it doesn't look as natural as if it wasn't that dark in those creases. I guess you could kind of see it as like a way of shading, but I don't know. I just think it would look better if it was maybe a little lighter. Overall, I really like how this prosthetic looks. I think the molding on this looks really good, especially the fully uncut head, and the paint job is really good on this. I think it just needs a little bit of tweaks and I'd really love it. I'm also not a big fan of how shiny this looks because to me that's less realistic as well. Something I did want to point out though is these are some of my favorite feeling balls so far. Like the actual balls inside of here are the right size and feel that I would think of when feeling balls. The silicone for this isn't sticky or tacky in any way, and I'm a really big fan of that. Something I did notice that was kind of funny is because the back of this is so smooth that sometimes I would place it down on a flat surface and it would stick, but that's just because of how smooth it is. It doesn't actually feel tacky or sticky to the touch. For the coloration on this, I'm actually pretty satisfied with this. The actual owner of Exoogen, when I reached out for this review, helped me pick out this color, and I think C2 does a good job of having enough yellow undertones for me, and it's the right amount of tanness that I need for my skin. For looks, I'm going to put this in Wouldn't Think Twice. I think this is a really good looking packer, and it has great details on it like skin texture and veins. They do also have some cut models as well if you're into those. The only complaints I really have about this are the shininess of the prosthetic overall, and some little tweaks in the paint job I feel like would just need some improvements and it would bump it up to the next tier. So packing with this is fairly comfortable. It is pretty squishy overall. It is a little bit bigger than I'd like, and I was concerned about how it sticks out the way it does, but it still compresses fairly well. I found that the best way for me personally to pack with this is to wear tighter briefs, and because it kind of sticks out like this, it's actually really easy to pack off to the side where the crook of my thigh and hip would meet. Something I'd like to point out is I'm not typically the type of person that likes to pack up with prosthetics, but because of the fact that this sticks out more at a 90 degree, I think you wouldn't have any issues packing up, because I know that's an issue with some downward facing prosthetics where it could cause rips or tears later down the line. I do think that this pack's a little bit larger than I like to pack personally, but not an extreme amount, and I would still like to wear it. Something I really do like about having a prosthetic with a tab is that you can put these in your waistband and it helps keep your packer oriented in the correct situation, so it's not rotating on you and going sideways. I also never had any issues with the silicone tugging or pulling on my hair or skin, which is always a positive. I think for comfort and packability, this is going to go into gray sweatpants season. It's a bit larger than I'd like, but I don't mind it overall. Again, packing off to the side was my preferred method for this, since the way it's molded made it easier and helps it to not stick so far out when packing. For squishiness on this is still a fairly squishy prosthetic. My only real complaint is because they use a kind of like skin formulation where the outside is going to be a firmer silicone than the inside. Around the tip, it gets a lot firmer because of the fact that that's where the skin silicone is kind of coming together and making a larger chunk versus being filled with the softer version. That being said though, I do think that this is a pretty squishy feeling prosthetic, and through pants, I think this would absolutely pass a grab test. For my squishiness rating, this is going into just right for me. Feeling this compared to an actual penis, it's the just right amount of squish and firmness that being felt through pants, it feels very realistic. I do know that some people are going to want prosthetics even squishier than this, and I do understand that. So, what did I think about the Exoogen E03? Well, I think it's a really good looking prosthetic. I love this molding on it. I just really have only complaints about the fact that for its price point of being over $300, I would want the paint job to be a little bit better on this, just because I feel like the balls and the tip aren't as realistic as I want them to be. But overall, I do think it's a pretty good prosthetic and it packs really well. I will say, one of my favorite feeling balls that I've had so far.
For my overall ranking, I will be putting the E03 Packer in worth a try.
I do think that this is a good prosthetic, but I think for it being over $300, I think you could find something cheaper that would fit your needs. Again, it is very realistic feeling, it feels good, and if you like to pack a bit bigger, that's great. My only real complaints about this prosthetic are I think that the paint job could be better, especially for the price that you're paying. I think that this would be great for someone who wants a very realistic feeling prosthetic and money isn't an issue for you overall. I'm also well aware of the fact that this is a small company and they need to be able to pay themselves for the amazing work that they're doing. So that was my review of the Exoogen E03. I hope you found this video informative, entertaining. I hope it gave you some insight on this prosthetic. If you have any questions about this prosthetic or any others I've reviewed in the past, please let me know. Have a good one.